One. What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka Lumberjack Landlord, here with our good buddy Mike Suber. How's it going, Mike?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I really want to talk about this topic today because we talk a lot about landlords and buying assets and how to buy assets, not nearly as much about how to then manage that asset when it comes to tenant interaction. So I think one of the really important things, just coming from my perspective, not sure how you've essentially directed your property manager to handle this, but what kind of guidance or what kind of processes do you know or have you given them to basically put in place for how to manage that tenant when getting into the unit and having that conversation with them? I know that a lot of people don't know what guidance to give their property manager, and maybe that system doesn't work. What are some of the things that you would recommend that if people are doing it with a property manager that they would tell them and kind of give them guidance on?
No exceptions. I mean, that's the biggest thing I've learned over 20 years is everybody's got a story. It's impossible to figure out what's true and what's not. It's amazing how many times we've heard the same stories over and over. And again, I'm sure sometimes they're real, but many times they're not.
Yep.
And I'm not in a position to judge. So we've adopted a mindset that the process is the process. We go through it every time, regardless. Nobody's treated any different. We don't accept excuses, right? There's a contract signed. You're an adult, and it is what it is. Now we don't. It's just, and this is why, frankly, this is one of the reasons I have a property manager. Even if, like, let's say I lived in Fresno, which I don't. I couldn't be a property manager because just naturally who I am, I have I try to put on a hard outer shell, but I'm gooey in the middle, if that makes sense. And I'd fall for every freaking story there is. And I'm just not that at. So it's really easy for me to tell my PM, my property manager, no exceptions, anytime, for anyone, for any reason. And probably 3 or 4 times a year, they bring me what they think's an exception to an exception. And I'm like, are you not listening? No exceptions for anyone at any time. Just because I can't judge what's real or not real.
Right.
I don't like being lied to. I don't like this. I don't like that. And so it just happens that way. Now, if there's something like, like Fresno, it gets hot, right? We don't have snow, but it gets hot. But if my AC goes out for some reason, then of course we take care of the tenant because those are known things, right? If it's on us, it's a known thing. My property managers went there and saw things like somebody on my team sees it.
Sure.
That's not an exception. That's like, okay, well, the process is we take care of people because we're good people. But these whole stories where they come in and just sing songs, no exceptions. I just can't tell what's real anymore. I've been burned too many times.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that that's probably the most sound advice anybody could get, which is have your criteria and stick to it. I think the areas that even as a self-managing landlord that I get into trouble with are the ones where we make an exception. It bites us almost every single time. We had one recently where it was, I've got to have a place by the end of the month. I have to, because they've given me the notice saying that they're going to rehab the building. And I don't believe landlords anymore, old landlords, because sadly, we aren't really brethren. They view it much more as competition and them getting rid of their problem onto me. So I don't even believe landlords anymore, because quite frankly, I got duped a couple times pretty hard where I now know 1000% that they were lying. And it was shocking to me that somebody would lie to get rid of their problem to make it somebody else's problem, knowing that they're going to do financial damage to them. So that was shocking to me. But one of the things,
come on, shocking to you?
It was, because I've never done that for a landlord that's called me as a reference.
I frankly expect every landlord reference to be a lie.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't expect them to be a lie, because I thought it was kind of like, hey, they're moving for some reason. Probably it's legitimate. What I found, especially in the last couple of years, what I found is their sob story in the beginning often ends up your sob story within a few months. And so it doesn't pay to have a heart in this business. And then every other tenant largely gets looked at with speculation, but that's where it comes from. I have 400 tenants. 4 or 5 of them I can't stand. And 3 out of the 4 or 4 out of the 5 were inherited. And so we're working our path there because we have a process where we get pretty great tenants. And it's not only a credit thing. It's not only a paycheck thing. It's just seeing how they respond, during the walkthrough, especially when you have your pick of the litter. So the cautionary tale I would give all the other landlords that watch us is, don't be desperate to get your unit rented if this market turns and you then have a challenging time finding a rental. What I would tell you at that point is you really need to be looking at Section 8. If you really are getting challenged at that point, and for some reason that unit's just not renting, Section 8, I guarantee you, has plenty of people readily available that are looking for a place that would be more than happy to take that place.
Yeah, I'm a huge Section 8 fan. Every unit I have is available for Section 8. I don't treat it any different than a cash paying tenant. First in, first qualified gets first yes. There are some overhead things, but again, I look at the overhead as check the checker. So it's all good to me. And again, a lot of that, I knew I was going to be that way since I had one unit, just given how we grew up, very housing insecure. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Section 8. Yeah.
So some people might ask the question. So I know that it doesn't pertain to me. We would make all of our units available to Section 8. The challenge is the cost of the unit.
Of course.
So for you, how do you do that when you probably have, I would guess that you have units that are more expensive than others based on location maybe, or is it kind of?
I think of our entire portfolio, there's probably a dozen or so, maybe it's 15 that are right on the cusp, because again, Section 8 over the last few years has been in the bump that they have next year is over 10%.
It's big
in my mark. So they've caught up. So there was a time probably 5 years ago where Section 8 was clearly behind in my market. It wasn't even close. That was a problem.
Yeah.
But the program, at least in my market, has done a great job. And I'd have to go look. I haven't looked in a while, but I bet you there's only 12 that are right on the cusp. And if a Section 8 tenant comes up and we can get the max, most likely I'll take a $50 or $100 haircut because again, I want the first person, the best person. It's
Sure.
the same process for me. It's I don't look at where the money's coming from. It's do you qualify? Do you meet all the boxes? And the first one to get a yes answer is in same process.
Yeah, I think that's the most challenging part for us is that Section 8 in our area is probably about 15 to 20% below market.
Yeah, that's where we were. It's not that case anymore.
And how were you able to how did you manage through that? I guess, was it you were just willing to take less for the unit because it was or
no? So I mean, sometimes you just have to say no, right? Because one of your qualifications is you got to pay this rent, and they won't go there.
Right. Sure.
So that's some of that is a no. Section 8 does have a exception process, which we ran through a couple of times. We never got the full amount, but we got some. Sometimes. Yeah, so I remember a couple of years where they just had a flat year to year. That was tough. And really where it was tough was on renewals. And we just chose to eat it on a renewal, so we didn't have a turn.
Yeah, I think on the renewal side, I absolutely see that. I would never want to evict somebody based on Section 8 not having an increased rent, knowing that the markets went up that much. That's not even a metric I'm looking at. Yeah. The ones that I have to look at, to your point, which is it sounds like we're kind of in the place where you guys were 5 years ago, when you've got a 15 or 20% delta, the hope is they might make it up, but you don't know that they'll make it up. And the challenge with that is I have 17 qualified people at market, but for those,
we take the first qualified tenant. And if unfortunately, if you come in with 1,500 qualification and you miss the first barrier. So
right.
Not qualified. Yeah.
And here's the key to that too. What Mike's talking about is something that's really important, which is when you don't make that exception, there's no interpretation of, well, we didn't get it because of this, or we didn't get it because of that. If you say no pets, if you say the rent $1,700, if you say that here's the occupancy level, if you say those things and then they don't meet that, then it's just a no. We're still allowed to make the rules by which we'll accept a tenant. We just have to be consistent. So I
Yeah,
think that that's really important.
everybody goes through the same filter, no exceptions anytime. It's kind of like earlier, right? Dealing with heart, it's the same process, right? And again, I couldn't do it as a self manager because
Yeah.
I'm again a hard shell GUI center, but I'm so glad I have a PM because I can act tough with them and then let them go do their thing.
So if you do have that gooey middle, like Mike, the best thing to do is have a property manager. So I have to say no to people that I don't want to say no to. But at the end of the day, I made an exception for a vendor that works for us.
Mm.
They work for us. They do great work. I wanted to reward that relationship. What's the point of having a relationship if it doesn't mean something and help you in some way and help others in some way? We made the exception and they are officially 2 months behind in rent. And they're a vendor of ours. And we've even given them work in that process. And they're a great tenant. We love them as a vendor. But this is something where they didn't fit the box and we allowed it because they are a vendor of ours, and it is no good deed going unpunished.
Yeah, the process is the process. Again, I learned that lesson. I mean, I had a similar situation. A handyman who
Yeah,
did great work, multiple
yeah,
projects,
yeah.
just didn't pay his rent. And I had to evict him. It's like, and then of course I don't use them anymore. It's like, man,
Right.
it's
Well, and
just nuts.
that's the other downside too, is that you're going to pull their business from them too. And
Yeah.
that's, for us, that's thousands of dollars a month with this vendor.
Yep. It's
Oh,
crazy.
so I would always caution everybody as you're going through this process, trust, but verify. And make sure that their sob story doesn't become your sob story, because I promise you, no good deed will go unpunished. I looked at this and factually, I believed it was going to go sideways, but I trying to do the right thing and help out a vendor that helps us, trying to do that, make that work, and it is not going well. So none of us are perfect. I certainly make mistakes, and almost always it's when I make an exception. So Mike, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
One rental at a time. I do a live stream Saturday at 8 a.m. for 1 hour. Come join. It's a lot of fun.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Mike, thanks so much. Please make sure that you hit that like button. Also subscribe. Live stream tomorrow, Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Mike's is at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 Eastern time. Good time. Don't miss out. Mike, we'll see you in video number 3.